Hello, everyone. I'm Rags. I am a dog, and I am here to talk to you about Kenobi, episodes 4 and 5. We're going to have a fun time. No, we're not. That was a lie. It's going to be misery. It's going to be absolute misery, because these episodes sucked. Ugh. Now, what I heard was, I don't really linger on Twitter. Twitter is cancer, right? If I ever go back to Twitter, it'll be for the memes and maybe networking. But apparently people didn't really like 4, but they really loved 5. I think that's interesting because, well, I suppose we'll get there when we get there, but I think both of these episodes are trash. I think they're embarrassing. And I think if you think this is good, wow, oof. Oh boy, maybe that's the greatest tragedy of this of this whole saga. I don't know how energetic I can be. I think I've expended all of the excitement earlier on today when we watched episode 5 and did our recording for that. So, I feel like a lot of the time you can sort of pull a general narrative, storytelling kind of message when you watch something bad. When you watch something bad, it's an opportunity to discuss what it did wrong and what it could have done better. Episodes 4 and 5, I think if they are taken as, like, if they were in a bubble, they're a condensed version of everything that's wrong with Disney Star Wars. And we'll explore why as we soldier forth. But in general, if you were going to kind of explain the packaging that these two episodes are, you have ruining characters by violating their pre-established traits and by continuing to show them be incredibly incompetent in a variety of scenarios. You have the loss of basic logic and sense. S-E-N-S-E, sense. You just don't get, nothing makes sense. You have to abandon reason in order to make a lot of these scenes and character motivations and explanations work. The only way you can even begin to make this show sort of fit together like any story should be, like a puzzle, like every aspect of a story is a puzzle piece and they all fit together to create one image. You have to totally believe everything that the story is telling you without any level of skepticism and without any memory of prior events and what has been established before. It taints the things around them, these episodes. It's not enough that these are two self-contained stupid stories. It goes further than that because they leak out into other things. We get retroactively ruining events in The Empire Strikes Back. In Rogue One, elements of both of these films are ruined by what I've been told by very popular Star Wars channels is the coolest moment in Disney Star Wars. Because remember, the people who love Star Wars the most, they don't actually care that it ruins old Star Wars films and it creates incredible plot inconsistencies. What they care about is, oh, did it look cool for that 10 seconds I was looking at it that one time? That's what they really care about. That's what a real Star Wars channel cares about. Did it look cool? Absolutely an aspect of style over substance. Episode 4 begins with Kenobi is on this rebel base where he's escaped and he has to go and track down Leia. Leia's been captured by the Empire and Reva through a series of ridiculous nonsense that occurred in episode 3. This was the one where Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, he takes an innocent person as a human meat shield in the event that if he is shot at by stormtroopers, the stormtroopers will instead kill this person that he's abducted instead of him. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's what Obi-Wan Kenobi does, guys. Everyone, I want you to remember that this is something that we have now established that Obi-Wan Kenobi is willing to do. And just rewatching this episode and listening to the dialogue, it's bizarre the way that writers formulate basic conversations. Obi-Wan, there's like a leader here at this secret kind of base that Obi-Wan has been healed and brought to, and he says he needs this guy's help in order to find Leia. And this guy says, no, you need to get out of here. Everyone, the Empire's looking for you. You're a danger to everyone by being here because you might lead them here, which is a very reasonable thing to say. But when Obi says, someone close to me has been taken away, this other guy says, that's not my problem. And then Obi-Wan says, well, I wish it was. Which is what a bizarre thing to say. Obi-Wan wishes that it was this guy's problem that someone important to Obi-Wan was taken away? When people watch the show, do they listen to this dialogue that goes back and forth? The people who wrote this, I don't know. Maybe they went with first drafts. I don't know. I'm not going to get too in-depth. Maybe one day I'll do a review of these episodes because there's so much to pick apart in terms of how characters speak to each other and how motivations can change and just basic logic breaks. It's really, really incredible how thick this kind of writing just is. It's just full of nonsense. But ultimately, the guy at the base decides to help Obi-Wan rescue Leia from her imprisonment on the Imperial base. And the Imperial base is on a water moon. It's all water, I suppose. And they have this silly looking black fortress that sticks out of the water like an evil looking spire, right? I think they call it the Fortress Inquisitorius, like this is some Warhammer shit. Now there's a couple people with them here, and they're in front of the little computer hologram that has the little image of the silly Inquisitor fortress sticking out of the water, and one of the people there says it's impenetrable. He literally says it's the Imperial Command Center, I suppose for the Inquisitors, but it's in Vader's system, the Mustafar system, right? This is clearly a very, very dangerous, important military fortress. They don't know how far down the base goes. They don't know anything about the inside of the fortress. Obi-Wan, by just looking at this red, it looks like a synthwave little hologram of here, I'll just get a picture for you. Obi-Wan looks at this picture and he says, I don't see any shields. Like that's something you could tell by just looking at it, apparently. I don't know, whatever. Now this is important, right? Obi-Wan looks at this little hologram and says, I don't see any shields. And the rebel man says, that's because nobody would ever be stupid enough to attack here. That's why there are no shields around this insanely important military base on this planet, right? That's why. There are no shields on it. Again, this needs to sink in. There are no shields here because nobody would be stupid enough to target it. Obi-Wan instantly says, take some T-47s, which are like the snow speeders, essentially. Take them and just go in at night. To this base. Take a couple snow speeders and just go in at night, and you could... Okay. We need to have a discussion, because this will pop up throughout the entirety of the episode, about military competence. This is not a nitpick, all right? It will sound like a nitpick if you don't know what you're talking about. We'll go over this again, just so we're clear. We'll get everybody on the same page. A nitpick is something that's incorrect in a film that doesn't affect the plot or characters ultimately. It's often like little editing mistakes or background problems or maybe a little inconsistency with continuity in a scene for its production. Little things that are wrong, but they don't affect the plot or characters, right? The ability of the antagonizing force to carry out its duties is not a nitpick. It directly relates to the ability of our protagonists to enact their plans and have a plot occur, okay? A nitpick is not defined by how big or small the thing is. For a character, if you had a trained soldier with a machine gun who is unable to kill someone else standing right in front of them, like that's not a nitpick, right? That impacts the plot in a very substantive way. If this trained soldier is a bad guy and he's shooting at the good guy, and he's inexplicably able to hit him when he has every reason to hit this character, it's not a nitpick. If he kills the protagonist, then the story is over. That affects the plot immensely. if you have a, let's use this example. We don't have to speculate on analogies and similarities, okay? The Empire has been turned into a joke. And that's not good for a number of reasons. First off, we have the world-building problems that this presents. How could this insanely incompetent military force possibly hold control over an entire or big portions of a galaxy? How could they have a galactic empire if they're always so insanely incompetent? If they're incapable of doing anything, if everyone in the organization is an idiot, their security doesn't make sense, they don't protect their bases, how is it possible that they're able to just operate? And it also devalues the victory over them. It isn't very impressive when your protagonists overcome an enemy force who are a bunch of morons who can't hit anything, who don't defend their bases, who are just generally incompetent. They're full of idiots who can't do their jobs, right? It's not a grand victory, right? If you got into a fist fight with a first grader and you just beat that little shit to a pulp, right? That's not very impressive. He's but if you are able to take on someone your size and you beat them, that's a lot more impressive. And if there was someone even bigger than you who was maybe a trained martial artist and you were able to beat that guy up, that's even more impressive, right? There's a huge scale here of the grandeur of a victory. When Luke and the rebels are able to destroy the Death Star, when they're able to escape Hoth with their lives, when they're able to defeat the Empire and Return of the Jedi, the Empire still had some semblance of competence to them, Ewoks and all. So that meant their victory was more grand. It meant that there was it made the victory sweeter. It was something to savor. And now whenever I see combat with stormtroopers, particularly on the ground, or heroes infiltrating an enemy base, there's nothing to be impressed about. Because the Empire is a joke. You are devaluing the triumphs of your protagonists by making the Empire really stupid. So we have this case here with the Fortress Inquisitorius. It sounds so evil. No shields. No anti-air guns. No scanners or sensors. No orbital defenses. No fleet above. No Star Destroyer above to intercept ships. No... It's just... as we go through this episode, we see through the entire base, the security there is basically just a suggestion, and it's not actually a protocol. You can essentially just walk around, and there are no cameras anywhere. There are no recording devices. The way that Obi-Wan Kenobi is able to get into the base is that he swims down beneath it with his little air-breathing thingy, and he comes out. There's this little hole in the bottom where I guess people can swim in and out, which you think they would be guarding, but they don't. They don't. You can just go in and out as you please, and there's not a camera facing this hole. There's not a... Sorry, I tried to burp, and then, I don't know, I ended up doing it, but I almost bailed halfway. But there's no turret or robots with guns pointed at the hole just standing there. They have one stormtrooper who is on the outside of the door to the room where this little hole is. And when Obi-Wan gets in, right, the stormtrooper is concerned enough to go inside and look around, but he gets taken out, because of course he does, by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And now Obi-Wan Kenobi's just in. That's it. One guard. Nothing else. No cameras. No turrets. No droids. No security. Anything. That's it. It's just a hole you can swim into. And now you're in the base. And that's that. How did they even get a ship close? Well, I guess there's no scanners, no sensors, no fleet in orbit here to defend this thing. Nothing. He just walks in. He basically just walks in. Simple as that. There's no plan. There's no cleverness to any of it. He just swims in. Just like that. That was easy. That must have been very easy for the writers. How is Obi-Wan going to get into the super secure facility that's the center of command for the Inquisitors, and it's in Darth Vader's star system? Wow, this is really... Wow, they even say that it's impenetrable. No, you can literally just swim in. That's it. You swim in, and you take out a Stormtrooper, and you're golden. You're in. Problem solved. Like, you have one of the chicks in the rebellion, or the proto-rebellion, I guess. She has she's in the Empire, but she's helping Jedi escape from the Empire. And she has like a certain level of clearance that allows her to do things. She's an officer, right? And part of the plan involves her showing up at this base. And all right, let's Return of the Jedi, right? In order for Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie to get into the Endor planet, right, to progress, they have to get past the deflector shield of the new Death Star. And in order to do this, because this presents a problem, right, because the Empire is protecting their massive starbase with a deflector shield. That's an obstacle that our heroes need to overcome. So they use a captured Imperial shuttle, the Tidarium, or the Tidarius. I think it's Tidarium. And they fly up, and they say, the shuttle Tidarium, we're requesting lowering the deflector shield. And the Empire responds, you have to send in the codes, the correct codes. A code that Leia says, I hope that code is worth the price we paid. Implying see, these little bitty lines in here. How do they get the codes? Well, they paid a lot of money in order to get these working codes. The Rebellion did, because they have resources to use, and getting an accurate code to lower a deflector shield, that's very valuable to them. It makes sense that they could buy this military asset from someone in the galaxy who has connections, whatever it may be. It makes sense. And they even have to give a reason why they're going to the Forest Moon. They have parts and technical equipment that they're delivering to the Forest Moon Endor. Vader is on the ship. I think it's the Executor, his big Star Destroyer. And he asked about the shuttle and where it's going. And Luke can sense Vader. Even from this distance, he could sense Vader. And so he says, I'm endangering the mission, I shouldn't have come. He's worried that Vader will be able to sense him. The point being that if you present in your story, especially if it's a story that has military elements, and whatever setting, be it a fantasy setting, a modern one, or a science fiction setting, technology and martial assets need to be dealt with. They are obstacles that need to be overcome. You do this by establishing rules and ways to circumvent technology in different ways. And the Empire strikes back. The Empire arrives at Hoth. They enter at light speed too soon. This is what gets Captain Needa killed by Darth Vader. And this gives the rebels a little bit more of a heads up that the Empire is coming so that they can try and escape. But the base down below is protected by a shield. And so the Empire has to land on the ground, destroy the shield generator so that the ships above can, start bombardments and things. And the rebels have to come up with ideas on how to escape. Okay, we'll use these ion cannons to disable the Empire long enough for us to be able to jump to light speed and, get away from them. There's a semblance of cause and effect here with technology that is simply not present in Kenobi. And it's a big deal because, again, I said these are plot elements that need to be overcome. Why does such an incredibly valuable military target like the Fortress Inquisitorius not have any of these things? Well, I think it's quite simple. Because these things would be obstacles that have to be accounted for in the writing. If there was a Star Destroyer parked overhead, if there were anti-air guns on this fortress, if there were requests for codes and clearances in order to enter the airspace, if there was a deflector shield on the base, these would be problems that they'd have to get around. And getting around problems, that takes work and effort. You have to write these things to not be problems anymore. You have to write your protagonists with the ability to get around these things through whatever means. I mean, like I said, the excuse for there being no shields, no one would be crazy enough to attack us here. The logic, of course, being, if you have no deflector shields, no presence in space, no scanners and radar, you have no anti-air guns, why wouldn't they attack? The reason people don't attack a base is because it is heavily guarded. If it's not heavily guarded, then the less guarded something is, and the more valuable of a target something is, and the less guarded and easily accessible it is to the enemy, the more likely they are to attack it. You can't just say there's no shields or defenses here because no one would be crazy enough to actually, attack us. Like, that doesn't make any sense. What's their solution to getting their friendly officer on board the base to help them with their escape plan? Oh, she just lands and walks in. She's looking around, being all shifty. He just walks in alone. This one officer just shows up, walks right in. When she gets to the first security check, which is already inside of the base, when she's asked to give her clearance codes and her essentially her papers, she says, "How dare you ask for my papers? I outrank you. Am I gonna have to call, am I gonna have to call the manager?" And then they just let her in. That's it. That's their solution. She just says, "How dare you check my clearance?" When he doesn't know her, she doesn't have a reputation. It's the laziest crap. She's like, "Oh, I'll tell the Grand Inquisitor about your insolence if you don't let me in." Which, by the way, probably should have clued them in that something was wrong, because as far as we know, the Grand Inquisitor is dead. So kind of weird that she wouldn't be aware of this on the Fortress Inquisitorius. But whatever. I need to stop doing this plot point by plot point. Synopsis thingy. I think you just get distracted because there's so much. They're so dense with stupid things that don't make any sense. For instance, when Obi-Wan is swimming up to the bottom of the base to just swim in, the doors just open up for him. Like there's not a lock or a code you have to get. It just opens up for him. It just very secure. It just opens up for him. Like there's clearly doors here that open and close, presumably to prevent, the transversal of personnel through this very vulnerable point on this base. And it just opens up. It's just someone swimming in. It's just open up. It's fine. It's not like a door that you should keep locked and closed. Obi-Wan gets in. You've got her name, Tala? I think it's Tala, right? She's our Imperial officer who's helping us, who's smuggling out the Jedi. She is able to get in, but bypassing security in the dumbest way. She sits down at a random terminal to look at all the computer stuff of the base layout and position of the little scanner droids, which are the worst. Just, if you're going to build a droid for scanning and seeking, they're called seeker droids, yeah. They're like little probe droids who float around looking at things, but they're like the shittest at their job ever. They can't... Point being, she sits down at this terminal. There's 3 people in front of her, 1 person to her right. Another officer walks up, doesn't recognize her, and say, "This isn't your station. Let's see some identification." She takes him back like 10 feet, chokes him out behind a piece of machinery, and just walks back and sits down, and no one else in the room, they're right there. They just don't notice any of this. She's secretly using a little communication device to talk to Kenobi in the base, and one of these other officers who's sitting down at their computer terminals, they even look at her like she's acting suspicious because she's being very, very conspicuous, whispering into this communication device, and they just don't do anything. You can get away with everything when it comes to going against the Empire because they're full of idiots who they're either oblivious in their senses, they can't hear and see things because they'll be concerned enough to say, "I don't recognize you, this isn't your terminal, give me your ID, I need to see your ID right now." But they're not concerned enough to take it past that. Very, very strange. And God, it just piles on top of each other. How come the guy who allowed her into the building, even though she didn't have clearance for this sector, how come after she went through, she didn't contact someone and say, "Hey, we had this one officer, and I don't know her name, or she's not from this sector, and she doesn't have clearance, but she threatened to like, talk to the Grand Inquisitor because she thinks the Grand Inquisitor's alive for whatever reason. And so I let her through. We need to, like, keep an eye on her. It's just kind of suspicious. No, he never did that. He just let her go in without any questions. Fire that guy who's in charge of security. To hell with that. Oh, I just realized, I just deleted a bit of recording. I realized if I start going through the plot, I won't stop. Because I'll go through the episode and I'll watch a little bit of a scene and a new thing will pop up that'll be an issue. And then another thing will pop up that will be an issue. And it'll all come crumbling down and I'll have to... I won't be able to stop myself. I'll say every little part of why none of this makes any sense and doesn't work. I know myself well enough. Plus, I just did it. I seriously deleted like 10 minutes of recording. I do these in not one take, but... big chunks. I do these in big chunks. So this ultimately episode 4 is about Obi-Wan and Tayla breaking into this fort. I say breaking into. They both, one literally just walks in. She just walks in and they let her in, even though she doesn't have clearance. She's able to just threaten that she... And Obi-Wan just swims in, and the doors even open up for him. They just get in, and they grab Leia, and they leave. There are some hallway fight scenes along the way. Obi-Wan, apparently, even though on the way to this location, he was struggling to pull a little, like, nut, a little, like, bolt, a little piece of, like, a computer component. He struggles to pull this little knick-knack towards him across a table. But in this episode, he is apparently so strong with the Force that he can hold back the ocean from flooding into the underwater portion of this secret base on this water moon. So it's interesting to see how he struggles with a tiny little thing. And then, I guess, 10 minutes later, he's super duper insanely powerful with the Force. It's really great for suspense and tension because he can do whatever he needs to do for the plot with no real concern or worry. We get the typical stuff. Stormtroopers cannot hit shit. One stormtrooper comes up right behind Obi-Wan Kenobi and just cannot hit him. He cannot hit him. Stormtroopers cannot hit anything with all of their shots. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that these trained soldiers are unable to hit targets that are just right in front of them. I don't know how far they can push it until people... Maybe that's just a blind spot that Star Wars lovers have. They just have this blind spot for enemy accuracy, and they say it's just a nitpick. No, it's not. It's not. It's fucking not. There are men with guns who are trying to shoot characters. If they're unable to shoot characters in any circumstance, then it's just like, what are they there for? They're just there for what? To get shot and fall down? Are they just there so that Obi-Wan could hit them with his lightsaber and they fall down so that Tayla could slap one with her hand and he just is stunned? Are they the most worthless soldiers in all of fiction? Like, they're so unimposing. We have fallen so far from the Stormtroopers of A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. We've fallen so far from that Stormtroopers are a joke now. They exist only to look like Stormtroopers because... point at screen, I know that reference, I know those, I know that armor. They exist only for those reasons, and to just be pointless, idiotic cannon fodder for our heroes to overcome. And that's it. There is never any sense of danger, there is never any sense of suspense. If you ever see a Stormtrooper, he's got an expiration date, because they're so worthless. Can't hit anything, and they do that thing where if anything happens around them, they have to flail, whoa, and they're just stunned. Like, oh, someone slapped my helmet, so now I'm just stunned, and I'm gonna fall backwards, and I'm gonna pretend like, oh man, the actors. Oh, there's this. I'm using it for the thumbnail of this video. Tayla has her hand on the one of the... she's being led out of the room, out of the office, and Reva wants to interrogate her to see if she's telling the truth about supposedly where Kenobi is. And in order to get away from these two stormtroopers... did I say stormed troopers? In order to get away from these stormtroopers, she just like slaps one. It's barely even a slap. She just like open palm sort of taps the helmet of one, which stuns him, and then she grabs his gun and like hits the other, and he's stunned now, and then she just shoots them both. It's the most fucking pathetic thing you'll ever see. It's just, I had so many scenes to choose from in episode 4 for this video, and I think I'm just going to do this in 2 parts, episode 4 and episode 5. So I'm already at the 30-minute mark. I'm just going to make that. It's as dumb as it looks. It's as dumb as it... Fuck it, I'll show you. Fuck it, I will show you. Man, someone give the guys who played these Stormtroopers, give them a medal for acting. Like, it's just... Nothing matters anymore. The Stormtroopers have been entirely, totally neutered in terms of any imposing nature or sense of dread, or that they were the military branch of this oppressive galactic force. They're jokes. They are worthless pawns to be disposed of at ease by our protagonists. They are barely speed bumps on our road to the next episode. That's all they are. They're worthless. They're as stupid as they are militarily incompetent. Any attempt that the show is trying to give me about, oh, you don't know what the Empire's capable of doing. Like, are they capable of doing anything? Are they just worthless? I'd be shocked that they could do anything, quite frankly. They're terrible. Ugh. An imposing enemy is all the more satisfying to overcome. An opposing enemy creates stakes. It creates suspense. But if you don't have a good writer, then this enemy force is nothing but just soft butter to be sliced through. Like lightsaber through butter. They just, our protagonists are able to circumvent the bad guys. There's no, video games? A lot of you probably, have you heard of video games? Video games are great, right? I've been playing a lot of RimWorld recently. I got into RimWorld lately. And I'm really liking RimWorld. RimWorld is like a colony management game, and all sorts of stuff happen. And that game, as many other games do, it has what we call stakes, right? If an event can happen, you have your colony, and you have your colonists, and your colonists have weapons and armor, and you know what the armor can do, and you know what the weapons can do, and oh no, I'm being raided by a tribe of cannibals. And I look over, and it's 5 cannibals, and 3 of them have clubs, and 2 of them have bows. And I know what those are. So I have some understanding of what the stakes will be for this fight. If I lose, then I could get injured in particular ways. I know, based off of what I'm looking at, kind of what its general threat level is. And you can't do that anymore with Star Wars, because you would think that an extremely important base that's said to be impenetrable, even though you could literally just swim into it. You just literally swim into it. You'd think that this kind of base that has all these TIE fighters in it, and all these like men with guns, you think that might be a big deal, but it's just not. It violates the kind of the concept you have in your mind of what danger is, because you think that going into that kind of a situation is really bad. If things go wrong, how do you get out? You need an escape ship, but how do you escape? Will they launch the TIE fighters? Are there... it's just... These things were accounted for in old Star Wars, and I'm not saying those were perfect, but they were pretty good. The Empire has these things. These are obstacles we have to overcome. So we will do this. Like I was saying with the shuttle Tiberium. I forget the name of it. Tiberius. Yes, Tiberius. There's a deflector shield. How do we get through it? Well, we can get this. We've got this captured shuttlecraft. Oh, we're going to need access codes. Well, we paid a lot of money to get some old access codes. That should get us through. Okay, we'll use that. Excellent. It all worked. See, a plan. Steps were established to circumvent the enemy. They executed the plan, and it worked. I'm not going to talk about episode 5 here. I'm too busy talking about the things that episode 4 made me feel. And also how stupid it was. It made me feel frustrated. Again, a lot of this, I know I've been talking a lot about stakes and the incompetence of the Empire, but they're the antagonists. They're the antagonizing force, and they're just shit. They're terrible. They're just worthless. You're waiting for a plot. The plot is always going to happen. There has to be a plot because it's a story, right? Sweet water. There has to be a plot. It's a story. Events occur. You have the beginning and the middle and the end. Things occur. Events happen. And you want to have a very strong link between what you see and what you would find reasonable and how the events of this plot play out. If I was going to tell you, imagine Obi-Wan Kenobi and a secret defector or spy in the Empire who's helping him. They go into this secure military base in order to break out a young girl from confinement. And I said, all right, imagine how this might play out. And you would probably think about, well, how do they get inside? How do they move around the facility unseen? Do they use disguises? Do they have a hostage? How do they take advantage of the mole inside of the Empire? What does she do? Do they use the vents? How do they get around? How do they get out, right? They got in, are they able to get out in a certain way? Do they have a ship? If they do have a ship, can they get away without being shot down? Is there stuff in the atmosphere or in orbit that might try and stop them? These are interesting problems that should be enjoyable or fun in order to write around. You could have this fun secret agent sleuthing around the base, being stealthy, avoiding stormtroopers and robots, and maybe there's some kind of a storm on the planet that knocks out the power every once in a while, and so they synchronize them getting in with an electrical storm or something. I guess maybe that's my big gripe. I wish they had done something approaching clever. Because ultimately this episode is two people breaking a girl out of a prison. And it's done in the most unsatisfying and illogical way possible. There's no rhyme or reason to anything that they do. They succeed because the plot needs them to succeed. You don't feel like there is a direct cause and effect in the show that you're watching. You feel like every event is you could see the strings, right? Maybe that's the analogy to use. That if you're the puppet master of the story, if you're the writer and director, you are the puppet master and everything in this world is your puppet. And you have all of these strings, right? And maybe depending on the complexity of the story, you don't need that many. I'm sitting here with my hands up like I've got a marionette. I'm gesticulating like I have a marionette when you can't even see me. You want to keep the strings hidden. That's the point. You want to keep the strings hidden. There might be a lot of strings to hide if you have a complicated story. There's a lot of aspects that go into how characters go where they need to go, do what they need to do. How do they get past obstacles? What is the nature of these obstacles? What are the natures of the obstacle? What is the nature of these obstacles? Proper. I know I don't speak wonderfully, but I have to you got to keep it sharp. Your speech craft, you have to check yourself. There's no sense of, okay, you do this. When this, like they do that in heist movies, right? They explain the plan. It's like a little time jump, but it's a really clever way to do two things at once. Establish what the plan is and then execute it. So instead of showing like all of your bank robbers, they set up their plan and then they have to do it, which is two different scenes, but you combine them together. They are explaining the plan, and then it makes the cuts, or it has the dialogue of the plan being explained, and the visuals are them actually doing it. So you do two things at once. They made a plan, and they executed the plan. Excellent. All right. Fantastic. There's none of this. That would have been great for this episode. A nice, classic way to kill two birds with one stone. All right, Obi-Wan. We've got some captured Stormtrooper gear. You're going to pose in the Stormtrooper outfit, and I am an officer, and here are our orders, and da-da-da, here's your clearance code. We're going to go in, and you're going to da-da-da-da-da. We're posing as this and then the other thing, and ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And there's some kind of plan, something. when the electrical storm's overhead, it will knock a hole in the Imperial security for just long enough for us to be able to use the codes that we have, and the computer will accept them because it's going on the fritz, or just something. I'm just top of my head, right? Top of my head. Also, I'm doing this for free, in the moment. You can probably hear my chair in the back. I'm wiggling my fluffy dog bottom on the chair, right? And it creaks, squeaks, creaks, squeaks. I don't even know what else to say. There's a scene where, in order to get, like, for instance, let's say the plan goes well. Let's say we get to Leia and break her out. How do we get her out? Like, we go to the torture chamber or her prison cell and we get to her and we acquire Leia. How do we escape, right? Well, that might be a problem that needs to be overcome, right? You might say, oh, well, you might, like I said earlier, you will dress up as a stormtrooper, and so will I, and we will pose like we're just moving. We'll put Leia in a box, and we'll push her around, or we'll carry it out like we're just moving supplies or whatnot, and we'll get it that way. We'll stow her in some cargo, and we'll say that we have orders to take some materials over to such and such place. No, that's not how they get Leia out, because that would kind of make some semblance of sense. What they do is, it's the most fucking ridiculous thing ever. It was definitely tied up. I know Jay tweeted about it. In order to get Leia out of this facility, and the alarms have been tripped, right? They've been caught, right? Oh, they've been spotted, right? They're not captured, but they've been spotted, and so they have to get out to the hangar, and so they just walk out. And you might be asking, but where's Leia and Obi-Wan? Won't they be spotted? No. Obi-Wan puts a hat on, and he puts on this coat, like a trench coat, and he has Leia underneath the trench coat walking with him. So there are 4 legs sticking out of this trench coat as he's just walking. They're walking right out the front door. And nobody notices. And it is just as silly and nonsensical as you could imagine. Because this is the Disney Star Wars empire, and they are worthless. And you can do whatever you want around them, because they're worthless. The episode sort of culminates in this sort of escape sequence where they eventually do get found once they're out on the little, outside on the landing platform. And 2 snowspeeders show up from earlier, and of course there's no anti-air guns that shoots them down immediately. No turret cannons. There's all these TIE fighters on racks, but they never get used. There's all these stormtroopers, and of course they come in from off screen, and they don't shoot, and if they do shoot, they of course miss by miles. Obi-Wan Kenobi, though, he's a crack shot. He could just turn around and blast someone with a pistol with ease, because that's what Obi-Wan's known for, is his incredible blaster skills, right? That would have been kind of fun if they did this thing where Kenobi never really used blasters, right? He normally used his lightsaber, but he had to start learning how to use blasters because swinging around a lightsaber would be way more conspicuous and dangerous as a Jedi, so he had to actually get a gun, and maybe someone had to teach him how to use a gun. But we don't do that in Star Wars. Everyone is just an incredible gunslinging crack shot with a weapon, unless they're stormtroopers. If it's a little bitty pistol, it doesn't matter. You can hit someone miles away by just kind of pointing it in their direction. It's just a point and shoot kind of thing. Don't worry about it. You don't have to train for shooting. It's not like a skill that you develop. So 2 of these snowspeeder looking things show up, and they're driven by 2 rebels that we met earlier, and they specifically said that they are not soldiers, but they're able to pretty much lay waste to all the Imperials out there. And one thing that's weird too is the snowspeeder cannons, the big cannons they have. If you shoot them at a Sith, she can block them with her lightsaber. She can deflect spaceship blasts with her little cannons, spaceship cannons with her lightsaber, which I didn't think you could do, But okay, I guess all blasters are the same. Whatever. Yeah, it's a massive gun that's way bigger than any turret. But yeah, you just block it with your lightsaber. Reva throws an explosive box at one of the snowspeeders as it's leaving, and it blows up, and it's played as like this. So it's very, very sad. Oh no, Wade got destroyed. Oh no. Wade, he said like 2 lines before this. Oh, I can't believe it. But yeah, 2 snowspeeders are apparently able to lay waste to this the outside of this fortress. You know, the one that doesn't have shields because no one would be stupid enough to attack it. This Fortress Inquisitorius. Yeah. This heart of the operations of the Inquisition. It's fine. Don't worry. It's just 2 sort of snowspeeders that aren't even driven by soldiers. They can just show up and shoot everything, and then they can fly away and leave. Do they deploy all the TIE fighters to chase after them and Kenobi? No, they don't. The speeder just goes away. The little T-47, the snowspeeder thing, it just flies away, and they just sort of watch it fly away, and they go back inside. Oh well, that's fine. I guess they got away. Oh well, it's a shame we don't have any technology that could chase after him, or. And then it's revealed in the end that Reva, during her chats with Leia, she put a little. She turned Leia's pet droid evil. I think Lola's its name. She turned Lola, the little flying robot, the one that is there to sell toys. Oh no! Now instead of having a blue light, it has a red light because it's been infected by the Empire, and it's like a little tracking device. Oh my goodness. Wow. Because apparently that was the plan the whole time, right? Our heroes escape. Reva puts this tracking device on Lola's... Sorry, on Lola, which is Leia's little robot. So if they escape, which is insane, right? The idea that you could be hero of all places and think, you know, in case they escape, I'll go ahead and I'll put this little tracking device on it so that we can find them. Makes me think that the idea here is that Darth Vader got the idea from Reva. Because in A New Hope, the reason that Luke, Leia, and Han and Chewie are able to escape the Death Star is because Darth Vader allows them to escape. So that, because he's placed a tracker on the Millennium Falcon, and he will use that tracker to find the Rebel base at the end of the film. It is not the Stormtroopers' bad aim in A New Hope that allows them to escape. They were purposefully missing and making it they're trying to make it look convincing so that our heroes can escape. Even Leia picks up that was too easy, that we were able to escape, and she's suspicious, and sure enough, it's part of a ploy. So I wonder if what the writers are trying to do is they're trying to say, ah yes, Vader, he learned it from Reva. She's the one who came up with that idea. Which wouldn't put it past this show to ruin Vader. Oh, but we'll get into that later when I do my episode 5 thoughts. We'll get into how they ruined Vader. Because of course they do. Because of course they do. Because they just can't help themselves. There's definitely more things to say. A lot of little things. A lot of stuff that I just forgot off the top of my head. Our video recording should be out tomorrow, I think. The recording for episode 4 that we did with the EFAP crew. But I think I'll leave it there. I've spoken enough. These are getting long as it is. I will see you later. Thanks for listening to my 48-minute ramblings about a Star Wars show episode. It's probably longer than the episode itself. Well, I will see you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for sticking around.